Welcome to the First Customers Podcast. Today we have Alex Levin, the founder and CEO of Regal.io. He's driven $1 billion in revenue to his customers. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And I like to think our team and our product have driven $1 billion of revenue for our customers.
For
I
sure.
can't take credit for all of that as much as I'd like to. I heard a long time ago a quip that I've always liked, which is when something goes right, your team gets credit for it. It's only when something goes wrong that the CEO takes responsibility for it.
That sounds wise. That's a good leadership principle. All right, let's get right into it, man. You've got a lot of customers, or at least some very valuable customers, it sounds like, given how much revenue you've helped generate, or your team has helped generate. Um, Talk to us about how you got your first customers.
Sure, sure. If I go way back to the beginning, we're a venture-backed company, and so I'll even start
Okay.
there with before even customers, sort of, the decision of do we raise money first, do we go get customers first, like kind of chicken or the egg, what do you want
Right.
to start with? And the advice that I give people always at the beginning is convince yourself first. It's actually easy to convince venture investors at the beginning that they should take a bet on you. When I meet sort of early stage, founders, they're experienced, they're excited, they have a big vision. Like I think they can convince investors. But I think the trick is make sure that you want to be in this business for, call it 10 years. The advice I was given is make sure you want to be talking about exactly the same thing, literally the same words for the next 10 years of your life. Because if
Wow.
you are, great, you're excited enough about this opportunity, you'll figure it out. But if you're not, if it's just flavor of the month, the latest thing you're interested in, you're not going to go through the lows. You're not going to go through what you need to do to get to the end. So be careful on that first. Uh, I think depending on the business, sometimes it's better to get customers first. Sometimes it's better to get, investment first. Largely, I think it has to do with people's risk tolerance. So if you have a little bit of money, put away and you can sort of fund yourself for a little bit, I do suggest going and doing customer development first, especially if it's a shorter sales cycle, call it 30 to 90-day sales cycle, where you can get through and really understand how customers are going to see your product. Even if you're just showing them decks and you don't have a built product yet before you go and raise money. If it's an enterprise sale, it's going to take years to sell it, or you don't have money aside and you need the money to pay yourself, of course, go get the money first. So that's all prequel to say, in our case, we got to very high conviction that there was a business in our area where we could build software for B2C sales teams that were helping, engage customers and help them buy more considered purchases online, things like, healthcare, education, insurance. So we knew that this was a business. We knew that, this was going to be big, and we convinced ourselves of that. We had a little bit of money put away. And so we started talking with customers ourselves. At the beginning, there was no sales team. There was nothing. It's just my co-founder and I. And the way I think about it is your friends are terrible customers. Because if you go to your friends and you say, I've got this thing, they're going to say, oh, that's great, Alex. We love you. Well, of course, we'll do it. They're not going to tell
Right.
you the truth that you have a silly idea or the pricing's wrong or you're pitching the wrong value proposition. So look, practice with your friends. I'm not saying that's bad, but don't rely on your friends for your first customers. Go rely on your friends' friends, like 1 degree away, because there's enough connection that they're going to take the call and listen to you and kind of, but there's enough skepticism that they're going to tell you the truth. And if they're not reaching across the table and pulling you and saying, I need that, you haven't even built it yet, but I need that thing, you don't have product market fit because
Mm.
eventually, later, it won't be you selling it. It'll be sort of somebody else. So if you can't get them excited about this thing and have them, pulling across the table for it, you don't have it. So very early on, that's what we did. Like I would go to friends of friends and, talk to them, and we tried different industries and different size customers to get a feel for what they needed. And, we ended up zeroing in on, these certain industries, these considered industries like healthcare and insurance, mid-market enterprise customers that already had phone sales teams. And, we would do everything we could to go and see them. So we'd ask our, friends for introductions. I'd go randomly cold email people on LinkedIn. So one of our bigger customers today, SoFi, I went on LinkedIn and I messaged their VP of marketing. And I said, look, we're doing something that I think you'd find interesting based on what's going on. I know you don't know anything about it, but like, hear me out for a second. And I bet you this will have a good impact on your business. And, he was willing to take that call and hear us out. And it turned out that they were a great fit. And, they ended up becoming a very big customer of ours. I
Wow.
think the advice that I got that I didn't take early that I should have taken is once I got a little bit of that flywheel moving, I should have hired I sometimes use the word BDR plus. Should have hired somebody who was very smart, knew sales, wasn't a closer yet, to help me with the sales process, help me make sure every week I was reaching out to more people, help me with follow up with meetings, help me refine the decks we had. Because when it was just me as the CEO, if there was a week where I had to do something else, there was no sales happening. And then guess
Yeah.
what? 2 weeks later, I had no qualified leads. And 2 weeks after that, I wasn't closing anybody. So I would have been much smarter to have hired somebody to help me at the beginning and be more consistent and sort of make sure I'm talking with more customers on a regular basis. But when I look back, I'm very appreciative of the customers that started with us early, and I think they understood the trade-off. The trade-off was there was a very early product, with a vision they believed in, a very early product, but they got direct access to the founder. So I hope very good level of support, very high input on our product roadmap. A lot of insight from our experience in this industry directly to them, not through 3 layers of management. And so, they understood the trade-offs. Then they were willing to take the early product in exchange for the benefits on the other pieces. Now, obviously, we're 2 years in, 2.5 years in, we've driven over $1 billion for customers. It's a very different exchange. We have a much more sophisticated product. We have people that are really deep in certain industries and can help those customers succeed. It's not customers taking a bet on, two people in a room anymore. It's changed.
So in those early days, you were reaching out cold on LinkedIn as one of your tactics. What are some of the other little tactics you were using in those very early first moments to get those first
Yeah.
couple
Oh, I
customers?
would just go on LinkedIn and look at everybody that my friends knew. And if there was anybody they knew on LinkedIn that I thought was an interesting prospect, I would send my friend an email saying, "Hey, so and so, thanks for offering to introduce me to this person. Here's a blurb about us. Can you forward it to them?" And I'd make it as easy as possible for them to go and make that introduction.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
I'd say that was the majority of it, though. Is
Really?
then, if I had a conversation with somebody and they were into it and they understood what we were doing, I'd say, well, great. Not only can we talk with you, but is there anybody that we should be talking with? And I'd
Okay.
try
Asking
constantly
for
to be getting,
referrals.
referrals and conversations. Um, I probably spoke with at least 100 customers before we ever even started building a product. And, I had
Wow.
a deck that had mock-ups of the product so they could see what we were building and see what we were doing. But it wasn't the final product for sure.
Okay. So how many potential customers did you talk to before you got a first sale? I guess you were talking to a lot because you didn't have anything for them
Yeah,
to
a
pay
lot. Like I
for
said,
yet.
at the beginning, we wanted to make sure we understood which of the customers we wanted to go after.
Hmm.
I think the trick with these sort of sales early is, well, it feels like you should go after everybody. You're better off going after a very narrow segment. Because what happens is if you go after everybody, they all have slightly different desires. Oh, this person wants one product. This person wants a different feature. This person wants more support. This person wants an API. Now all of a sudden you have to build 18 different things and you're never going to be good for anybody. But if you can find out of the universe of people the segment where it goes, oh wow, actually they kind of all want the same thing. And it's something that's relatively easier for us to build and we know what it is and we can do it really quickly and really well. That's where you want to start. So at the beginning, it wasn't even us necessarily trying to sell them all. It was trying to understand first, yeah, who was pulling across the table for selling, but then within that crew, where was the center of the problem where we could build one product that would serve them very well. And we focused a lot at the
Okay.
beginning on how do we help them drive incremental revenue. And we in our product didn't have a lot of traditional features that teams expected. We didn't have voicemail, for instance. Like literally, if a customer called in didn't have voicemail or a phone system, we would do other things to route it to an SMS conversation, whatever. But we didn't have voicemail because it wasn't driving revenue. And so we focused on other features like automated SMS that would drive revenue. And we knew that our customer segment would be okay with that trade off. So, very early, yeah, of those 100, we signed up, I think in the first month that we went live officially, we signed up 2 or 3 of the customers and they're still with us today.
Wow. So you used that initial period of talking to customers as part of deciding on what to build in the first place, kind of helping define your product market fit.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of
Well,
serving
I
that
guess
dual purpose.
being a founder is so hard because you both need the conviction of where you're going to go eventually, and you need the flexibility to listen to when people are telling you you're wrong, basically.
Hmm.
And you need to know where to bend and where not to bend. So, we had this conviction of what we wanted to build. sure which was the first set of features that were going to serve
Right.
customers well and drive value for them. So we really, thought through that a lot because we knew we didn't have infinite resource at the beginning. We couldn't compete with, every feature, but we could pick a few that everybody really wanted and do those well.
So would you say part of that founder market fit kind of that you were talking about is the most important first step? Is it more about like deciding on just an industry that you'd like to serve and a general area that you'd like to serve? Because it seems like the product does kind of get defined as you go, even though you might have a general area that you think it's going to, like you're saying, it changes. You have to listen to the feedback. So
Yeah.
is it more important just to say, hey, I like this industry, I like this area of problems?
Yeah, I don't want to like preclude people from the right solution, so I don't want to say it should be industry per se, but I
Okay.
definitely would think about how do you break apart your customers into logical groups. So let's say you're building, I don't know what's the new example these days. Um, you're going to build an AI, a generative AI company,
Yeah.
for image or imagery. There's a lot of different use cases in there, and certainly it's not the worst thing to do it for everyone. I'm not saying that's the worst thing in the world, but from a go-to-market perspective, that's not very helpful. You'd be better off saying, well, what the use case I really care about is when people are making decks and they need to put images in those decks, or when people are making websites, even. Let's
Yeah.
start with a different one. People are making websites and those two examples, making decks, making websites. Well, one end user is a business end user, a different end user is a designer end user.
Yeah.
One is working in, PowerPoint and Google Slides, and others working in Figma and Adobe. One cares about how fast it makes it and maybe doesn't care about the quality of the image, and the designer cares a lot about the quality of it. So choosing, even with those two things that sound so close, the features that you would build would be quite different because of the
Right.
difference in the needs. So in that case, it's not industry, it's, I
Yeah.
don't know, job type. So for your specific company, understand your customers, understand how they should be segmented and what features are important for each before you get too far. And I keep saying features because we're a technology business, but you could
Yeah.
be a service business, the same concept applies, right? What is the set of services that that customer group needs? And how would you serve them? How easy is it for you to do it? And could you repeatably do that motion again and again for many customers? Or is this a one off thing? The worst thing you can do early days in a company is get dragged way into left field by one customer, only to realize that, and you think they're big and they're giving you revenue and whatever, only to realize there's nobody else that wants that. And now you're way
Mm.
off in left field instead of like straight down the middle where there's maybe a lot of customers that want the thing you have.
Okay. So that's an interesting balance to what you were saying at first, because on the one hand, you do want to listen to customer feedback and really serve those first customers well with that hyper focus. Like you were talking about, you were the support team, you were everything, and you were giving them, white glove service. And I know on projects I've been on before, like there is that tendency to, hey, we'll just build everything that, that first big customer needs.
Mm.
And that'll be our first round of features. But
Yeah,
like you're
it can
saying,
work as long as
yeah,
everybody, as you have 10, 20 other customers or however many other
right.
customers that want the same thing. So, it's one of the things that, I warn with startup founders is even if you want to be enterprise, it's not bad to start mid market where there's sort of a faster velocity sale, lower expectations on features where they're not going to expect to control your roadmap. Because by the time if you go into enterprise, they're going to expect that you do the thing that they want you to do. You build whatever features they want. And that could take you far away from what everybody else needs. So when you get bigger, that's okay. You can have some team members that are just focused on that big customer. But when you're tiny, if all of your team members are focused on that, it's going to take you off of, it may take you off of what you want to be doing.
Any of the regular first customer podcast listeners will start to recognize there's a pattern emerging, and it's being echoed by you right now. Something that comes up a lot is the value of talking to lots of people in your target audience as early as possible, like you're saying, even before you've built anything.
Yeah.
Figure out that target audience that you're aiming for and talk to them about the problem you're trying to solve, or if you're trying to figure out what startup to even go after, talk to them about their problems and see if there's any of their problems that you could potentially solve with your skills or with your ideas or whatever. And there's a potential to build a company around that. And it's so interesting to see how closely like the best startups seem to have that same vibe that you're talking about. Like talking early, not going the whole stealth route where you never talk to anybody, about what you're building, and you just find out after the fact whether or not anybody needed it.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a very common paradigm in startups where people like have an idea and they go hire a tech team and build something for a year and then go show it to customers. Well, guess what?
yeah,
Second you show it to customers, you go, shoot, built it wrong. I have to build it again. So save yourself a year.
yeah,
Don't build a product, like build a design and a deck and show them the design and the deck. They're gonna have exactly the same reaction to the design and the deck that they are to a fully built product. Doesn't matter to them. They're going to give you the feedback and you'll get it faster. So I think, the best companies fail faster.
mm,
It's a weird way of thinking about it, but the best
yeah,
companies fail fast and they fail a lot. And then what they do is they recognize its failure, they identify a way to make it better, and they move forward. The ones that succeed are the ones that are the speed of iteration on failure is really, really quick. And so they find ways to accelerate getting that feedback, even if it's negative feedback. The companies that get stuck are the ones that spend a long, long time doing work without feedback, a long, long time before failing, because now that's
yeah.
wasted time.
Yep. And so the cheapest way to fail fast is a conversation where you're just vetting the ideas that you're having before you've even mocked anything up. And so that goes back to what you were saying, how you were just talking to hundreds of customers before you'd even, gotten anything.
Yeah.
Um, and I know, like, I think it was episode 4 or something like that. I talked to this startup founder, and they were just going to events in their target niche
Mhm.
and talking to people about their problems. And they ended up getting a customer, and it turned into this big $1 billion company. And, it was just out of talking to people about their ideas, about the problems they were thinking about solving. And just from that open discussion, they were able to validate the idea and get a customer. So that's really cool to see how much your path aligns with these principles that are starting to merge.
Yeah.
Okay, so the DM and making it really easy to referral on LinkedIn, kind of crafting that message, reducing friction as much as possible. Um, we've kind of skipped over what Regal IO actually does. We've talked about the results, but give just, I know we've got about 10 minutes or so left here because you got to go, but just give us a little idea of that core service, maybe that how it started, that core set of features you chose to start with based on the feedback, and then what it's evolved into.
Sure. So my co-founder Rebecca and I come from B2C industry, so bringing different consumer industries online. And the last one we were at was in the home improvement space. And actually, a lot of the things that we've built today are learnings based on our experience in the home improvements industry. What we found is consumers were first online used to shopping commodity products, clothes, shoes, CDs. You show a price, you have a review, you make it easy to buy, God forbid, never talk to the customer, right? That was always the sort of like way of operating in retail. What happened is everybody who shops online expects to do everything online today, even the most complicated things like getting a mortgage, let's say. And so in these industries, so the one we were in was in home improvements, what did we do? We built a beautiful website with all these different features, and you could like order a home complete renovation on the internet. Well, guess what? People came because they liked exploring online. People didn't convert.
Hmm.
And so what we did is we found actually if we had a conversation with that customer, the conversion went back up to the traditional offline rates. So when we did digital only, sure, you had the advantage of distribution, but you had very bad conversion rate. When we did digital and the sort of human sales motion together is where we got this magic piece where we had the distribution of the internet and the conversion of traditional sort of engagement. And we could actually use more and more of the customer's information that they put in about their home and about what's going on to give them an even better experience online than we ever could offline. So we ended up building, a team of thousands of people at this home services company that were engaging with customers to help them get what they wanted. And it was a huge part of the success. The challenge was that the software for phone and SMS has largely been built for the customer support case, where the paradigm is, deflect the customer, don't talk to them. And if you're going to call them, it's kind of manual. You dial them, or the other mode is what's called a predictive dialer, where you just put contacts in a list and it calls them as fast as possible. We've all experienced this, where all of a sudden you get 18 calls from somebody within two
Yeah.
seconds. And the manual way is no good because agents can't figure out which of the millions of customers they should be calling and what they should be saying. That's an unrealistic expectation. The dialers just spamming through people was bad because it treated every customer the same and alienated people. And so we ended up building all kinds of custom software around this. And so Regal was built to sort of take that to the next level, to make it easy for mid-sized and enterprise businesses to run these very complicated orchestration of calls and text, personalizing what was said to whom at what moment, for all these sort of inbound leads, right? So we're not cold calling. These are brands like AAA or SoFi or Row in healthcare, right? That have customers coming in who want the product but are not able to do it just with self-serve online. And so these brands reach out using Regal at the right moment in the right channel with a branded, call, and they have the right script to help convert that customer. And ultimately that's our value proposition, right? Is how do we help them build the by far best converting sales flow using Regal? And it's not about a
Okay.
one-time thing, right? It's constant iteration. And so when we did this at our old company, of course we built some solution with some set of calls and text, but then it was static, very hard to change. And it took us a long time to get there. So now we can go to companies and from day one, give them a platform that allows them to be the most sophisticated sales team and constantly be iterating to find exactly what orchestration sort of what campaigns are right for them.
Okay. So you're not doing like automated cold calls, that kind of thing. It's specifically focused on the sales flow after that inbound lead comes in.
Yeah, inbound lead comes in. Our software is helping their teams identify who to call, when, with what message. It's their teams using it. And we've built out all the telephony, all the SMS, all the unified customer profile, all of the analytics to
Okay.
empower their success.
So with brands who have lots of incoming leads that they can't feasibly fully service and give highly targeted messages, that's where you come in and solve that
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. Look, if you have 10 customers a month, this doesn't matter.
Right.
You do it by
Okay.
yourself. Our brands have millions of new customers a month, and
Wow.
so they need technology to be able to, treat one of those customers. So, there's millions of them, but they want to treat one like they're one in a million, and that's really, where
Right.
technology excels.
Wow. So just to recap the principles that I've gleaned so far, uh, make sure you've got founder market fit for the startup you're working on or the business you're working in. Uh, Make it easy for people to refer your business. Uh, LinkedIn DMs still work. Cold DMs.
Yeah, just be honest. The mistake I see
Yeah.
people make is they blab about all kinds of stuff. Just be honest. Say, hey,
Yeah.
I used to say I come from this company. I see, I think based on what I see, like there's going to be a real opportunity here. I'm the founder of the company. Can I talk to you a little bit and tell you how excited I am about what this is going to be for you guys? People will
Yeah.
listen at a very, very high rate. But if you send them a spammy email, blah, 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 same to everyone. Yeah.
Get so many of those. Yeah, I think being the founder, reaching out directly, that definitely has more weight than, you know, somebody with an email with 5 random number digits after it because you can tell they're spamming everybody. Well, man, this has been really informative and it's super jam packed. Even though it's one of the shorter episodes we've done, you packed a ton of value in here. You've got a super clear vision of like how the life cycle of a startup should go. Um, could you speak to that real quick? Is it like the what you've trained in? Like, just have you been through multiple startups, or just personal study, or like VC coaching, or I'm just curious about that aspect of your mindset.
Yeah. So both my co-founder and I have similar backgrounds. We went to liberal arts undergrad, so we believe in studying things that are interesting to you. That we were not professionals in any way undergrad. She studied English, I studied philosophy and psychology. We then both transitioned into technology companies. We've worked for a lot of startups over time. As
Okay,
product managers first, and then eventually as executives. So we got
gotcha.
to see, what we liked, what we didn't. Early in our career, both of us worked for banks and consulting companies, so we saw what uh, you know best in class big companies look like. So we had seen that as well, so we could easily compare. what does that look like versus different startups? I worked at a startup with 5 founders, for instance, and learned that's like herding cats. Like never have 5 founders at a startup. Like, 3 max. Like, one
Yeah.
is probably not good either, but 2 or 3 is ideal. So you learn these things over time. I think I've been lucky to have people sort of mentor me through this stuff, and the role that they play is to show me how they think about it. The role I play is to learn from them. So I think a lot of folks in this generation want the mentorship, which is great.
Hmm.
That's half of it, but the other half of the battle is you have to then learn from the person. So I remember like working for bosses where they'd go in and do things a certain way, and like I'd listen to it and watch them, and like the next day I could like word for word do it the way that they had done it. No, today I do it differently, but that mimicry enabled me
Hmm.
very quickly to understand how they did things. And I think through like, why did they make decisions in that way? And I might not agree, but that was beside the point. My job as a junior person was not to disagree with them always, but was to mimic them and understand what they were thinking so that they knew they could put me into the situation and I could do it the same way they were doing it. Because then they could go to
Yeah.
the next problem. And sure, over time, did I improve things a little bit and disagree with them a little bit? For sure. But I
Right.
think early in people's careers, they think too much about the mentorship and not enough about the learning. And then, my co-founder and I, sure, now have a lot of sort of advisors and investors who help us see around the corner. So we don't know the sort of, everything about, let's say, pick a topic, everything about anything, but pick any one topic. But we might go and send an email to a few advisors and say, how have you seen this happen? And we're not asking them to tell us what to do. We're asking them to give us their experience. And we use that to then come up with a way of thinking about it and make a decision of where we're going to start. And our sort of approach is that it's a journey. So just because we start somewhere doesn't mean that that's where we're going to end. And so we iterate until we find something that works. I think the hardest part, as you scale up, is once you get good at that, is actually then taking what works, institutionalizing it, and making sure that it doesn't break as you get to every scale.
Mm.
We've been tripling year over year for a couple of years now, and it's
Wow.
hard to not break things as you scale.
For sure. Last question. Do you have any book recommendations related to what we talked about today?
Yeah. Um, it's actually funny. I have little kids, and I was reading a book earlier this year that I'm thinking about buying for like everybody in the business world. It's for little kids. It's called How to Listen So Kids Will Talk and How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. And I actually
Ah,
think it has a
okay.
lot of very valuable insights about how to like interpersonal dynamics in general.
Yeah.
This is not meant to be a metaphor that like you're working with children or anything. It's nothing like that. It's fascinating how they've done a very good job of uh, 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 shining a light on these very complicated interpersonal dynamics when there's tension. And I think like it's a very valuable read actually, if you have little kids or if you're running a company. Other than that, the one I always suggest if you're gonna raise money from venture capitalists is Venture Deals. It's a book that's about all
Yeah.
the different terms in venture deals. I think the subtitle is like "Know the terms better than your lawyer," something like that. If you're gonna go raise venture, you're competing against somebody who's a professional when you're an amateur, right? The VCs are constantly raising money. They're
Right.
professionals. I do it once every year and a half at most. So, make sure you get as much information as you can going into it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex, for your time. And listeners, we'll see you next episode.
Thank you.